The jungle pulsed with unseen life, a tangled mess of bioluminescent vines and shifting shadows. Lieutenant Mara Voss crouched low, pressing herself against the damp earth. She was being hunted. She had heard them, just a whisper of movement, a breath out of place. They thought she hadn't noticed. They were wrong. She adjusted her grip on the makeshift blade, her pulse steady. The wound on her side wasn't deep, but she let her movements suggest otherwise. She wanted them to think she was weak. Easy prey. That was the game now. The Xel'Thar were legendary hunters, apex predators across the known galaxy. To be targeted by them was a death sentence, at least for most species. They hunted not for food or survival, but for sport, for the sheer pleasure of the kill. Mara knew their type. Overconfident. Arrogant. It would be their downfall. A faint chittering sound reached her ears, communication, distant but closing in. 5 of them. Maybe 6. Their approach was calculated, a slow tightening of the noose. She shifted ever so slightly, ensuring her boot print in the soft soil was just visible enough to draw them forward. Let them come. From their perspective, she was floundering. Their scans showed her injuries. Their heat sensors caught the erratic flicker of her energy levels. A soldier, yes, but one out of her depth. Alone, wounded, stranded. They had hunted humans before, primitive creatures with short lifespans, impressive survival instincts, but ultimately inferior. One of them, a scout, moved ahead of the pack. He crept forward on digitigrade legs, his chitinous armor blending seamlessly with the environment. His twin mandibles clicked in anticipation. He could already taste the victory. Another kill for his trophy wall. Mara let out a sharp breath, feigning exhaustion. Just a little closer. The Xel'Thar scout stepped into the clearing. His predatory gaze locked onto her footprints. His posture shifted, sensing something was off. But too late. The earth gave way beneath him. A crude, human-made pitfall trap. Simple. Effective. He fell hard, landing with a sharp crack as his leg twisted unnaturally beneath him. A snarl of frustration escaped his throat. Mara remained motionless, listening. No immediate reaction from the others. They hadn't seen him fall. The jungle swallowed sound well. The Xel'Thar scout activated his communicator. A rapid burst of clicks and growls. His voice was urgent. Alarmed. Mara allowed herself a small, grim smile. Good. Let them feel it. Let them sense, even for a moment, that the hunt was no longer in their control. She faded into the undergrowth, moving without sound, without haste. The hunters believed they were closing in on their prey. They hadn't yet realized the truth. She was hunting them. The Xel'Thar regrouped, their movements sharper now, more alert. The loss of their scout had changed the hunt. No longer a casual pursuit, it was becoming a test. A challenge. Mara knew their kind. They thrived on dominance, on proving themselves the ultimate predators. That arrogance blinded them. They expected a chase. A desperate fight. They didn't expect strategy. She had studied their methods, observed their patterns. They relied on superior numbers, technology, and intimidation. They expected prey to run. But she wasn't prey. She was setting the board, moving the pieces exactly where she wanted them. She had chosen this stretch of jungle for a reason. Thick canopy overhead blocked their aerial drones. The uneven terrain forced them into narrow pathways. The local wildlife, lethal in its own right, could be leveraged against them. A faint vibration underfoot told her they were moving. Spreading out, but not too far. They were still confident, still sure of their control. She adjusted her position, slipping between the massive roots of a towering, ancient tree. The trap was set. A second Xel'Thar passed beneath her. Larger than the scout, heavily armored, carrying a plasma caster slung over his shoulder. He moved with purpose, scanning the area. She struck fast. A controlled drop, blade angled for precision. The knife sank deep, severing the junction between his shoulder and neck. His body stiffened. A gurgling hiss escaped his mandibles as he collapsed. Dead before he hit the ground. Mara wasted no time. She stripped his gear, keeping only what she needed. A wrist-mounted cloaking device, limited charge, but useful. A combat blade, heavier than hers but perfectly balanced. She left the plasma caster. Too noisy. She vanished before the others noticed he was gone. Minutes passed. Then the discovery. A sharp, guttural sound from the nearest Xel'Thar. A distress call. The hunt was unraveling. The Xel'Thar commander, Korvek, responded with a curt series of clicks. Tactical. Precise. He was adapting. Good. That made it interesting. The group changed formation, moving tighter, more defensively. They abandoned stealth, sweeping the area in force. But that played into her hands. They were reacting to her now, not the other way around. Another fell minutes later. A pressure trap, quick, silent. The jungle swallowed his body whole. The remaining hunters hesitated. Their movements, once fluid and assured, turned wary. Mara could feel it in the air. The shift. The uncertainty. The moment they realized she wasn't the one being hunted anymore. Korvek stiffened, his gaze scanning the darkness. For the first time, he felt it. Fear. The jungle closed in around them, oppressive and unrelenting. Korvek stood motionless, reading the carved message again. His claws flexed at his sides. Rage, calculation, something else creeping in. A feeling unfamiliar to his kind. The last two hunters remained close, scanning every shadow. Their confidence was gone, stripped away piece by piece. They had hunted across the galaxy, pursued beasts that towered over them, creatures with fangs like blades, monsters that could level cities. None of them had ever felt like this. They had dismissed humans before. Weak, soft, too emotional, too reckless. But now they understood. Humans didn't hunt for sport. They didn't revel in the chase. They hunted to win. Korvek exhaled slowly, adjusting his grip on his blade. He wouldn't run. He wouldn't break. He would finish this himself. A rustling to his right. His head snapped toward the sound. Nothing. A blur in his peripheral vision. A flicker, gone too fast. His mandibles tightened. He could feel her watching. Waiting. One of his hunters turned suddenly, pivoting too hard, just as a wire snapped beneath his foot. The ground beneath him buckled, a hidden pitfall swallowing him whole. A single, strangled cry. Silence. Korvek didn't move. He didn't flinch. He only stared at the pit's edge. Another one gone. The last Xel'Thar took a step back, weapon shaking. His head turned wildly, searching for something, anything. His breathing was too fast. His claws dug into his palms. A soft whisper in the dark. Words in a language he barely understood. One left. The hunter lost it. He fired wildly, his plasma shots cutting through the jungle. They hit nothing. His chest heaved, his body tense. Then he ran. Bolted into the trees, abandoning Korvek, abandoning the hunt, abandoning everything. A fatal mistake. A flick of movement, a sharpened edge slicing through the air. The hunter's body hit the ground before his weapon did. Korvek exhaled. Slowly. Deliberately. He was alone now. Finally. A real hunt. His mandibles twitched, something resembling a grin forming. He rolled his shoulders, adjusting his stance. The jungle was silent once more. He could feel her. Not running. Not hiding. Waiting. Good. Let her come. Korvek didn't wait. He moved first, every step deliberate, his senses sharpened to the extreme. His mind raced with the thrill of the hunt, the challenge now clear. He was the apex predator, and he would not be outsmarted by this human. The jungle no longer seemed like a place of refuge. It was a proving ground, a ring for combat. Each tree, each vine, each shadow felt like an extension of his will. He knew Mara was out there, he could feel it in his bones. She was waiting for him, but he would be ready. Mara's tactics were simple, but effective. She was using the environment against him, exploiting every weakness in his armor, every gap in his perception. Korvek had underestimated her once. That would not happen again. He crouched low, listening to every rustle, every breath of wind, every heartbeat. His claws flexed, preparing for the inevitable strike. She was clever, but cleverness alone would not be enough. Then, he heard it. A soft snap of a branch, a fraction of a second too loud. His instincts flared. He lunged toward the sound, blade in hand, anticipating the attack. But it was a trick. She had misled him. The real attack came from above. The vine snapped tight, and Korvek felt the ground disappear beneath him. A net of tangled, reinforced material constricted around his limbs, dragging him down with terrifying force. The trap had been set. For a moment, the world spun, and Korvek's mind struggled to adjust. He struggled against the entanglement, his strength surging, but the material held firm. He hissed in frustration, trying to break free, but the more he fought, the tighter it became. He could hear her now, just out of reach. Her voice was calm, almost mocking. "You're not the apex anymore," Mara said, her tone cold. "Not here. Not with me." Korvek snarled, fury blazing in his eyes. This human, this soldier, had beaten him at his own game. She had turned his confidence into his downfall. She had made him the prey. He broke free, but it was too late. As he lunged toward her, she had already closed the distance. A flash of metal, a strike to his exposed throat. His world narrowed to the single, searing pain of his life slipping away. Korvek crumpled to the ground, unable to fight back. His vision blurred, his grip on his blade loosening. His life was fading, snuffed out by a human soldier he had once thought insignificant. Mara stood over him, her breath steady, her eyes calculating. There was no triumph in her expression, only cold determination. She hadn't just survived this hunt, she had won it. She looked down at the fallen Xel'Thar leader, the last of his kind. He had underestimated her, as they all had. And now he was gone. She reached for the communicator on his wrist, activating the signal. A small flash of light indicated that rescue was on its way. She had done what she needed to do. Next time, send more. She whispered to herself, as the jungle fell silent once again.